November 27, 1944. Over the black waters west of Saipan. The night is so thick it swallows everything, ocean, horizon, even the droning silhouette of the lone Mitsubishi Ki-46 Dyna slipping through the humid Pacific air. Its pilot, Lieutenant Kenji Soto, leans forward, squinting through the dim red glow of his instrument panel. He knows this route by heart now: glide in low, drop a few fragmentation bombs over the American runway, and vanish before anyone can scramble. For weeks, Japanese crews have performed these harassment runs with impunity. The Americans, Soto believes, have nothing fast enough to chase a Dyna in darkness. The night has always been Japan's ally. Below him, Saipan is a faint smear of muted lights, a few trucks, a few tents, and the soft amber glow of a maintenance bay. Nothing that suggests danger. But something is wrong tonight. He can feel it, a weight in the air, a static press along the skin. The Dyna's radio crackles, the gunner behind him shifts uneasily, scanning the void. And in that void, something moves. High above, unseen and unheard, a different aircraft is carving a slow arc across the sky. A hulking black shape, matte painted to drink in starlight, the Northrop P-61 Black Widow. Its twin engines hum at a pitch that blends with the wind, and deep inside its nose, the SCR-720 radar sweeps the heavens like an invisible lighthouse. In the rear cockpit, radar operator Lieutenant Raymond Mooney leans over his scope. A bright blip pulses at the edge of the display. Contact. Bearing 280. Closing fast. Up front, Major Carroll C. Smith doesn't reply at first. He's watching the horizon, the dim outline of the Pacific clouds below. His glove tightens around the control wheel. He's been waiting weeks for this, the moment the Japanese stop laughing at reports of America's mysterious night hunter. He nudges the throttles forward. The Black Widow answers with a low, hungry growl. Mooney calls out again, voice steady but rising in anticipation. Range at 4,000. Altitude slightly below us. He doesn't know we're here. Of course he doesn't. That's the point. The Americans had listened for months as Japanese pilots mocked their inability to intercept nocturnal raids. The harassment runs were meant to be psychological, to rob crews of sleep, to remind them that Japan still had teeth. Without radar-equipped night fighters, US bases in the Marianas felt like open doors. Until now. Smith dips the nose, sliding the massive black aircraft into the enemy's blind spot. He can barely see anything, just a faint shimmer where moonlight touches wing edges. But the radar doesn't lie. It paints a perfect map in the darkness. 3,000 yards, 2,000. Soto still senses nothing. His Dyna cruises smoothly, skimming the air like a dragonfly. He reaches for the bomb selector switch. And then, just for a second, he thinks he sees it. A flicker. A shadow against a darker shadow. Behind him, the gunner twists in his seat. Tojo! Something's following us. But before the words finish leaving his mouth, Smith pushes the throttle to the stops. The Black Widow surges forward, closing the final gap like a predator breaking from the tall grass. 100 yards now. Close enough to see the faint twin glow of the Dyna's exhausts. Smith's thumb pauses on the trigger. He breathes out slowly, steadying the vibration, the tension, the knowledge that this is more than a kill. It's a message. Then he fires. The night erupts in a silent flash, a strobe of bright white tracers spearing through the dark. They tear across the Dyna's fuselage, rippling metal, punching flames out the far side. The bomber lurches violently, banking hard into a losing spiral. Soto's world turns into a tumbling wash of sparks and alarms. "What hit us?" he screams, but the wind swallows his voice. From above, Smith watches the falling aircraft, its fire trail flickering like a dying lantern over the Pacific. For a moment, the sky is quiet again. But the message is already spreading, a whisper carried by surviving radio operators, by stunned Japanese crews, by reports that make no sense. Something found them in the dark. Something that shouldn't exist. Mooney breaks the silence in the cockpit. That's one. And there'll be more tonight. Smith doesn't disagree. He simply banks the Black Widow back toward Saipan, toward radar range, toward the next blip already forming on the edge of the scope. The Japanese thought the night belonged to them. They're about to learn it doesn't. The ocean below glimmers faintly as Major Carroll C. Smith brings the P-61 back into a smooth climbing turn. The Black Widow feels alive, almost predatory, as if the kill has awakened something inside its dark frame. The cockpit smells faintly of warm electronics and burned cordite, the lingering signature of its 420mm Hispano cannons. Lieutenant Mooney leans closer to the radar scope, adjusting the gain with practiced fingertips. The screen is calm for a moment, just the rhythmic sweep of the cathode ray. But then, a flicker. A second contact. Another lonely Japanese bomber threading its way toward Saipan, exactly as they've done for weeks. Except tonight, for the first time, the Americans are ready. Mooney's voice cuts through the hum of the engines. New bogey. 085. Range 6 miles. Climbing. Smith's jaw tightens. The Japanese do this deliberately, spaced out lone aircraft, never in groups, never predictable. They want to exhaust American pilots. Keep them guessing. Keep them awake. But radar changed everything. Without it, the night is chaos. With it, the night becomes a map. The P-61 settles into pursuit like a shark settling behind wounded prey. Below the canopy, Saipan's airfield twinkles, a constellation of lamps and gasoline fires left from earlier attacks. The U.S. Army Air Forces on the ground still think the night is quieting down. They have no idea a new hunt has begun overhead. Mooney murmurs updates like a heartbeat. 5 miles, 4.2, bogey descending. Probably another Key 46 or a Betty. Smith imagines the Japanese crew, relaxed, confident, maybe even joking in the dim glow of their cockpit. For months, they've taunted Allied radar stations by swooping low, avoiding searchlights, using cloud cover like a cloak. Some even bragged about dropping bombs without ever seeing an American fighter. That arrogance dies tonight. The Black Widow slips beneath a drifting bank of clouds, its paint swallowing the moonlight until the aircraft becomes nothing but a shape, a suggestion, in the darkness. Smith can barely see his own wing. But Mooney's voice keeps him locked on the target. Range 2000. You're directly behind him. Then a new voice joins them over the radio, the clipped accent of ground control. Widow 7, be advised. More contacts forming northeast of your position. Possible formation inbound. Smith doesn't look away from the void ahead. We'll deal with this one first. At 1,000 yards, he finally sees it, a faint, trembling spark. Exhaust flames. The Japanese bomber, likely a Nakajima J-1N1 or a Betty, is cruising gently, unaware of the death sliding into place behind it. Mooney whispers, he still doesn't see us. Of course he doesn't. The Black Widow was built for this. Smith inches closer. Every second stretches into something fragile, electric. The P-61's engines beat in rhythm with his pulse. 600 yards. 400. Mooney's tone shifts, the tension tightening. Carroll, we've got a problem. Smith doesn't flinch. What is it? New contact. Bigger. Faster. Looks like he's heading toward us. A Japanese escort. Impossible, they rarely deployed fighters on night raids. Smith banks slightly, tightening the angle. The P-61 glides like a shadow across the sky. The bomber ahead is seconds from doom, but the second contact complicates everything. Mooney recalibrates the radar sweep. No, wait, it's not heading toward us. It's searching. Making wide turns. He might be looking for his missing friend. A cold realization settles across the cockpit. The Japanese know something is wrong. By now, word may already be spreading across Japanese frequencies. A bomber disappeared west of Saipan. No warning. No distress call. Just vanished. Smith understands the stakes. If the Japanese realize America has radar night fighters, they'll change tactics. Hide deeper in cloud banks. Fly erratic patterns. Disrupt the very advantage the P-61 depends on. So the second bomber cannot escape. Smith rolls slightly left, lining up both aircraft in his mental map. The first target, directly ahead. The second, circling wider, unaware he's drifting into the Widow's hunting ground. 2 kills in a single mission would do more than weaken Japanese morale. It would shatter it. Smith whispers into the intercom, voice low, controlled. Raymond, we take the first one fast. Then we swing for the second before he realizes what we are. Mooney nods slowly, eyes fixed on the glowing blip. I'll guide you. 10 seconds later, Smith squeezes the trigger. The night explodes again, sharp, surgical lines of tracer fire carving into the bomber's wings. Flames bloom instantly, rippling across the engine nacelles. The aircraft bellies downward, coughing smoke, spiraling into the dark. But Smith doesn't stay to watch it fall. He's already turning. Already climbing. Already accelerating toward the second blip, the one that knows something is wrong, the one that might radio back to base and change everything. Mooney grips the radar controls tighter. Carroll, this one's moving faster. If he sees us. Smith cuts him off with a steady, chilling certainty. He won't. But up ahead, the second bomber suddenly banks, as if reacting to something unseen. As if it sensed the hunter coming. Something has changed. And the night is no longer quiet. The second bomber cuts a shallow arc through the darkness, its exhaust flickering as it banks east. Major Carroll C. Smith feels the shift immediately, the subtle, unmistakable sign of a pilot who has sensed danger. Whether it's instinct, radio chatter, or a glimpse of the fireball that used to be his comrade, the Japanese flyer is no longer cruising with the carefree confidence of the earlier raids. Mooney studies the radar scope, his voice tight. His accelerating. Climbing. He knows something's out here. Smith doesn't hesitate. Then we catch him before he figures out what. The P-61 dives slightly to gain speed, engines humming in a deep, predatory resonance. The sensation is almost eerie, like the aircraft is eager, hungry, pushing into the chase. The night air tears across the Widow's radar dome, the fuselage vibrates as the throttles edge toward their limit. Mooney calls out altitudes like stepping stones. 6,000, 6,200, 65. His climbing hard. Smith envisions the Japanese bomber, likely a Mitsubishi Ki-67 Hiryu based on the radar signature, pushing its engines to the edge, the crew inside sweating in the stale, recycled air. They don't know what's behind them. They don't know how close it is. But they know something killed the first bomber quickly, cleanly. And fear travels fast in the dark. Cloud layers peel past the P-61's wings as Smith threads through them, trusting radar more than eyesight. He sees nothing, not the ocean, not the moon, not even the enemy ahead. Just black. Pure, swallowing black. But Mooney sees everything. His banking left. Trying to shake whatever's following him. Smith smiles, a tight, grim curve. He's making my job easier. The P-61 climbs steeply, engines roaring. Gravity presses Smith into his seat, the cockpit trembles with rising speed. The Widow's nose breaks through a thin cloud shelf, and for the first time, Smith catches a faint glimmer ahead. A tiny spark. Exhaust. Mooney confirms it a heartbeat later. Visual contact confirmed. 200 yards above our 12. Smith settles into the attack. The Widow angles upward, lifting itself behind the bomber like a rising tide. He flips the gun selector to harmonize all four 20mm cannons. The bomber ahead grows clearer, a silhouette against starlight, broad wings glinting in fractured moonlight. Then the bomber does something unexpected. It dives. Hard. Smith's eyes widen as the Japanese aircraft drops straight toward the ocean, banking violently, trying to vanish into the thick lower clouds. It's not a random escape maneuver. This is deliberate. Intelligent. Desperate. Mooney's voice cracks for the first time tonight. He's trying to draw us into the dark where his gunner can hit us. Smith yanks the Widow into pursuit, but he knows Mooney is right. Japanese night crews rarely flew with tail gunners active. It was pointless with no visible threats. But tonight, the gunner may be awake, weapon ready, scanning for the phantom that killed his friend. Smith steadies the Widow's glide path, adjusting pitch by inches. He won't get the chance. They plunge into the cloud layer. Everything disappears. The world becomes cotton, thick, grey, suffocating. Smith can see nothing. Not even his own wingtip. But the bomber is still on Mooney's screen. Mooney whispers, 60 yards, closing. Smith's pulse kicks up. 60 yards is too close. He needs 50. He needs the perfect shot. He needs. Suddenly the clouds part. Barely. Just enough for a shape to appear ahead. The bomber is right there, ghost-like, wavering in the milky haze. Smith's finger hovers over the trigger. And then he sees it. A muzzle flash. A single, bright spark from the bomber's tail. The Japanese gunner has seen them. A moment later, a streak of tracers slices through the cloud, ripping past the Widow's canopy in bright orange arcs. Mooney shouts, "They see us! Brake right!" Smith snaps the control wheel, and the P-61 rolls violently as more tracer fire rips past. The Japanese gunner isn't firing blind, he's tracking. Shooting with precision no bomber gunner should have in the dark. But that's the mistake. They showed their position. Smith levels the Widow, breath steady, adrenaline razor sharp. "Raymond, give me the angle." Mooney's hands fly across the radar controls. Come left 5 degrees, nose up, his right in front. The clouds thin again. The bomber looms ahead, larger now, almost broadside. The tail gunner fires another burst, but it's too late. Smith squeezes the trigger. The cannons erupt, silent in the cockpit but blazing fury outside. Tracers punch straight into the bomber's fuselage, tearing through the tail assembly, silencing the gunner instantly. Smith holds the line, letting the rounds walk across the wings, the engines, the heart of the aircraft. Flame gushes from the right engine. Then the left. The bomber buckles. For a moment it floats, suspended, like a dying star. Then gravity takes it. It rolls over, nose tipping downward, disappearing into the thick, swirling cloud bank below. Mooney watches the radar signal jitter, flicker, fade. Silence returns to the cockpit. Dense. Heavy. Absolute. Smith exhales. That's two. But before Mooney can respond, ground control breaks in again, the voice sharp, urgent, cutting through static. Widow 7, be advised. We're tracking multiple new contacts approaching from the north. Larger than bombers. Repeat, larger. Possibly a formation of reconnaissance aircraft or something else. Mooney's eyes widen. Smith lifts the Widow's nose toward the dark horizon ahead. Something else. The night isn't over. Not even close. For a moment, the cockpit is frozen in stillness, the kind that comes only after violence. The glow of burned powder lingers in Smith's nostrils. Mooney's radar scope hums softly, the circular sweep casting faint green light across his tense face. Then ground control's warning echoes again. Widow 7, multiple contacts inbound. Large. Fast. Estimated altitude 8 to 9,000. Vector north by northwest. Large. Fast. Not just bombers. Smith straightens in his seat. Raymond, pull range. Confirm size. Mooney adjusts the gain, leaning so close to the scope the green light colors his cheekbones. His breath slows. His voice drops to a whisper. Carroll, those aren't Key 46. Or Betty's. The blips on the screen are bigger. Brighter. Moving with purpose. Smith's grip tightens. What are we looking at? Mooney hesitates, just long enough for Smith to know he's thinking the same thing. Japanese fighters. But that doesn't make sense. Japan didn't send fighters at night. Night combat was too dangerous, too unpredictable. Their aircraft weren't equipped for nocturnal interception. Unless they were looking for whatever killed the first two bombers. A cold realization settles across the cockpit like falling ash. The hunters are now being hunted. Mooney murmurs, could be J-1N1 Irving night fighters. Some variants had crude radar. Limited capability but enough to search an area. Smith's heartbeat slows. He's not afraid. But he is alert, a different kind of alert. This is no longer an ambush. This is a standoff in the dark. He settles deeper into the seat. All right. Then we make the first move. The P-61 banks left, its massive wings slicing into the cold night air. Below, Saipan is now only a distant constellation of lights. The sky above is a shifting ocean of cloud banks and moonlit pockets. Mooney calls out the new contacts. 3 incoming. Tight formation. Range 10 miles. Altitude steady around 9,000. Direction. Heading directly for where the last bomber went down. Smith swallows the hint of a smile. So they are searching. The P-61 begins climbing, engines thundering in a deep, resonant growl. Smith knows the Black Widow's advantages: radar, raw power, devastating firepower. But the Japanese fighters, if that's what they are, have one advantage too: they're expecting to fight. And they're angry. Clouds whip past the Widow's wings as they ascend into clearer air. Saipan's coastline vanishes below. The only thing left is black sky and the cold gleam of starlight on metal. Mooney breaks the silence. Carroll, they're splitting. The 3 radar blips diverge like knife points cutting across the screen. One veering left. One veering right. One continuing straight toward the Widow's previous position. A coordinated sweep. Smith mutters, they're smart. They're covering each other. Mooney nods grimly. We can't outrun them. But we can outthink them. Smith banks slightly east. Let's test a theory. The P-61 drifts toward a thickening cloud bank, a towering wall of vapor billowing like smoke over the Pacific. Smith kills a sliver of throttle, letting speed bleed off until the wind around the canopy quiets. Mooney whispers, "You're hiding." Smith corrects him softly. "No. I'm baiting." Inside the cloud, everything vanishes. The outside world dissolves into grey mist. The engines echo strangely, their notes muffled and stretched. Smith keeps his hand steady on the control column, feeling the Widow settle into the fog like an animal burrowing into brush. Mooney's radar shows the Japanese fighters closing. 8 miles. 7. 6. 3 blips moving with eerie coordination, like wolves circling a kill. Smith speaks in a low voice. "We let them think they're tracking us. Let them get comfortable." Mooney glances up from the screen. "And then we turn the lights on." Mooney nods, already knowing the plan. The Black Widow has one feature the Japanese night fighters don't, a dorsal turret with full traverse and a radar-assisted firing solution. Combine that with a surprise exit from cloud cover, and Smith can ambush a fighter before the pilot even spots him. The blips draw closer. 4 miles. 3.5. Mooney stiffens. Carroll, right-hand contact accelerating. Might be diving. Smith's pulse quickens. They're trying to flush us out. The cloud bank churns. Static crackles faintly in the headphones. Mooney's voice rises an octave. 2 contacts closing fast. Miles shrinking. 3, 2. Smith grips the throttles. Not yet. Not yet. He feels the weight of the night pressing against the canopy, the tension crackling like live electricity. Every second stretches thin, threatening to snap. Mooney suddenly gasps. One of them is right on us. Smith doesn't question it. He slams the throttles forward. The P-61 erupts from the cloud bank like a beast exploding from a cave, engines howling, wings slicing through the damp Pacific air. Moonlight slashes across the canopy, blinding bright for a moment. And in that moment he sees it. A dark shape. Too close. Too sharp. Too fast. A Japanese J-1N1 Irving night fighter streaks past the Widow's left wing, barely missing a collision by 20 feet. Its twin engines scream as it shoots ahead, the pilot no doubt realizing he passed directly over the prey he thought he was stalking. Mooney shouts, "He overshot. He doesn't know we're behind him." Smith doesn't hesitate. The Black Widow rolls, clearing the cloud edge. He levels out behind the Japanese fighter's tail, closing the gap with lethal efficiency. The Irving begins to bank, sensing something behind it. Too late. Smith's thumb finds the trigger. The dorsal turret swings automatically, locking onto the target with radar precision. Mooney breathes one word. "Now." Smith fires. The night erupts. The Irving shatters in a blossom of sparks and shattered metal, spiraling downward into the darkness below. But before the flame even fades, Mooney speaks again, his voice trembling with awe and rising dread. "Carroll, the other 2 just changed direction." Smith steadies the P-61. "They know exactly where we are. And now they're coming. Together." The sky feels tighter now. Heavier. As if the darkness itself is aware of what's coming. Mooney's hands hover over the radar set, fingers trembling with controlled urgency. 2 blips, sharp, bright, moving fast, now streak directly toward the P-61's last known position. There's no more doubt. No more uncertainty. The Japanese are no longer searching. They're hunting. Smith pulls the Black Widow into a shallow climb, engines rumbling with raw power. The ocean below is a featureless void. The moon hides behind a drifting veil of clouds. Only the instruments, the hum of machinery, and Mooney's steady breathing keep the scene anchored in reality. Mooney's voice finally breaks the quiet. "Carroll, they're in attack formation." "Then so are we," Smith replies, tightening his harness. One of the approaching fighters banks wide, flanking right. The other climbs above, trying to take a high angle, a classic pincer. But they're doing something unusual for Japanese night flyers, coordinating with precision. Almost like a trained daylight squadron. Maybe these weren't typical raiders. Maybe Japan sent its best. Smith feels the Widow's weight settle into his hands, that perfect balance of steel, firepower, and purpose that Northrop engineers built for moments like this. Mooney calls out positions in sharp bursts. Lead fighter at 11 o'clock low, second one climbing hard. He's trying to cut off your escape. Smith's mind is already working. They think we're going to run. Are we? Mooney asks. A long pause. No. Smith pushes the throttles forward, climbing straight toward the upper fighter. It's a crazy move, reckless on paper, but perfect in the dark. The Japanese pilot expects the American to dive away from danger. Instead, the Widow knifes upward through the cloud fragments, closing the gap in seconds. And then Smith sees him. The Irving silhouette flashes against the moon, sharp twin engines, cockpit glowing faintly. The Japanese pilot clearly didn't expect an American fighter to charge straight at him. Mooney reacts instantly. He's pulling up. He doesn't know what to do. Smith angles the P-61 just beneath the Irving's ascent and pulls the trigger. The cannons spit fire. But the Irving rolls violently left, dodging the burst by inches. The tracers tear through empty sky, drifting into darkness. Smith curses under his breath. This one is good. Very good. The Irving dives. Smith follows. The two aircraft plummet through broken cloud layers in a spiral of screaming engines and tearing wind. Smith stays glued to the Japanese fighter's tail, matching him turn for turn. The Widow's wings shudder under the strain, but Smith holds the line. Mooney shouts updates between breaths. He's diving to bait you into his wingman. The second fighter's moving to intercept. Smith doesn't answer. He simply pulls harder. The force punches into his chest. Vision narrows. His jaw locks. But the angle is perfect. The Irving tries one last desperate maneuver, a low lateral roll to shake him, but Smith anticipated it. He rolls with him, staying directly behind the Japanese fighter until the Widow's radar-assisted turret locks on with a mechanical click. Mooney whispers the confirmation. Firing solution. Smith squeezes the trigger. This time the clouds light up from within. The Irving erupts in a brilliant orange flash, fragments scattering like embers before being swallowed by the dark. The explosion paints the underside of the clouds in molten gold for a heartbeat, then vanishes. Mooney exhales hard. That's one left, and he's coming in fast. The second fighter dives from above, guns blazing. Tracers whip past the Widow's nose, slicing the sky in parallel streaks. Smith jerks the controls, barely avoiding a direct hit. The Japanese fighter peels overhead, climbing for another attack run. Mooney's voice rises. He wants altitude superiority. He's trying to force us low where he can rake us across the top. Then we don't stay low, Smith replies. He slams the throttles forward again, climbing steeply. The P-61 surges like a rising storm, engines belting out a roar that rattles the cockpit frame. The Japanese fighter arcs in from above, but this time Smith is ready. The two aircraft spiral toward each other, one diving, one climbing, like opposing blades. Mooney murmurs, head-on pass. Smith keeps climbing. Closer. Closer. The Japanese fighter's silhouette sharpens into a predatory black arrow. Mooney shouts, brake left. Brake. But Smith doesn't brake. He fires. The twin bursts leave the Widow's nose in perfect convergence. Tracers streak across the shrinking gap. The Japanese fighter tries to roll out of the line of fire, but the angle is too sharp, the timing too short. The rounds tear through its right wing in a clean diagonal slash. The fighter jerks violently sideways. Then it dips. Then it plummets. The Irving tumbles into a spin, dropping through the cloud deck in a trail of smoke. A small orange blossom blooms far below, barely visible before the darkness devours it again. Silence. Then Mooney speaks, his voice soft, stunned. That's all three. Smith finally exhales, shoulders sagging as the adrenaline drains from his limbs. The night sky is still again. Quiet. Clear. Empty. Ground control breaks the silence. Widow 7, all enemy contacts have disappeared from our scopes. Repeat, area is clear. Your radar record shows 4 confirmed kills. Smith glances at Mooney. Mooney whispers the truth neither had spoken aloud until now. Carroll. Japan will know after tonight. Their commanders will realize the darkness doesn't belong to them anymore. Smith looks out into the vast black horizon, calm now, almost serene. No, he says. It belongs to us. And on that night, without fanfare, without witnesses, Japan's long-held superiority in the shadows died quietly over the Pacific, taken apart by a single squadron flying a strange black aircraft the enemy had once mocked. A plane they would soon learn to fear.